Michael's work. Okay, I want to start by saying, both on your website and on the Drey website, that you talk very openly about having schizophrenia.
Yeah.
And how it has impacted the making of art and the themes. And
for sure. Yeah.
When you look at a piece like this, there's definitely feelings of protection, you know, things that are inside, things that are, you know, projected. So
I think a lot of my stuff that I've come to realize in the last little while is about healing.
Healing. Okay.
Yeah. And these two pieces, the two bigger pieces that I have in the show, kind of are themes of shelter or themes of refuge, as they use the word in Buddhism and stuff like that.
Sure.
And those types of themes are safety, security. Those types of ideas are central to sort of my everyday existence, kind of trying to get myself safe and secure and those types of things. Just in terms of mental health and that kind of those types of ways of being.
So beyond the traditional pharmacopoeia and the Western medical model, are you doing other things that help?
I am a little bit too much of an armchair Buddhist. I do like ideas a lot, so I end up reading about it more than I do meditating.
Sure.
which is you're supposed to be practicing. I think my biggest thing would be practicing kindness. And just on an everyday basis and stuff like that. I'm in customer service, and I find I have incredible patience for people, and I genuinely find people interesting and enjoy
So the
interacting with people.
Compassion
and empathy and those sorts of things. I practice that way a lot.
So, I mean, this is such an interesting piece just to look at it. I know that there are important themes involved, but just compositionally it's so intriguing.
Yeah.
I was wondering if you could just sort of give us an idea of your process as to how you conceived the work and how you put it together.
Yeah. Well, the figure was one of the first things that came, and it's basically started off with a drawing. A lot of my sculptures do start with drawings, and I often make separate objects and then want to bring them together. And I find that there's kind of a poetic dialogue that happens with the objects themselves. And as I was talking about with a space within the space, it's kind of it is a sculptural kind of dialogue, but it's site specific. They're not completely site specific to the environment that they're around. It's I build these spaces like this, like the dome here, so that it can inhabit that space within the space of the room. And and then the dialogue between the objects, I hope, is kind of a poetic sort of bewildering, kind of confusing sort of situation where it's what the heck is actually happening here kind of dialogue unfolds sometimes. And it's not so much confusion for confusion's sake, but that it can veer into that realm, but I hope that it's more of a poetic kind of conversation.
Right.
And about life. I mean, we're in a space within another space.
Oh, for sure, exactly.
And in many ways, we're trying to sort of fumble our way towards understanding.
Oh, totally, yeah. It's funny because when I was a kid, I always thought, what would it be like to be on an alien planet and step in lava?
Right.
Thinking it was water or something like
Right.
that. But we are in that situation here.
That's right.
Like, although we know what water is and stuff like that,
Yeah.
but there are a lot of things we don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, the strangeness of ordinary life.
Exactly, the strangeness of ordinary life is some of the themes that I'm pointing
Is
at.
estrangement and or maybe alienation part of your conceptual universe?
It is in terms of like the surreal, I would say.
Surreal.
There's definitely a foundation to my work.
Right.
Yeah.
What is it about surrealism or surreality that?
Well, having gone through the psychosis myself and schizophrenia, it was just an insidious sort of move from everyday world to reality to this really extreme end of things where I couldn't tell what was real and what wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
And it is at a level where much of what is happening around you, you think has to do with you personally. It's almost the opposite realm of like Buddhism, where you take the self out of, for spiritual reasons, take the self out. Well, in schizophrenia, it's basically like you are so self-absorbed and think everything's about you. Conversations around you, the radio, the TV. It's all. It is like the opposite, complete opposite.
So the ego is struggling to understand the world through ego.
Yeah.
Whereas with Buddhism,
trying to get rid of
you want to overcome the ego or transcend the ego.
Yeah, for sure. Exactly.
And recognize that you aren't a separate entity.
For sure, exactly. Yeah.
Whereas it sounds like with schizophrenia and various other situations too, where people, they start to have grandiosity, right?
Exactly.
Especially if they start to have a spiritual awakening. And it's just like, you know, I'm like Jesus, or that's sort of another extreme, I suppose.
Well, there was a TED Talk from a gentleman that had that exact title to his TED Talk. Was it Schizophrenia or Spiritual Awakening? And I saw that just recently, and then that led me into ideas about root chakras, and so I've been getting into ideas about that, and that led into conversations about the safety and the security. And then seeing that in my work lately, and being able to like pinpoint, that maybe is more of what that's about, you know.
And so as you say that, and you know, I spent 30 years studying esoteric medicine.
Nice.
Energetic medicine. It's like you've got the root up to the fourth chakra, or from the heart up to the crown chakra there.
And then that would be the lower, like the
and actually, as where you're placing it now, that would be the
and center section.
That would be the heart. Third. No, hold on. Where are we going?
And the root would be down at the
tailbone. But anyway, it's all about, because when you see the first thing I thought of when I saw that structure, I thought of aura, or the etheric body, and in fact, when I do guided meditations, I teach people to create the space around them.
Nice.
A bubble, a protective space.
Is there a reason why half they figured that was exposed?
Just in terms of, I don't think so. I think it's mostly just an aesthetic choice. Just the way it looks, not conceptually really too much. Although I did want the starburst. I see that as a kind of like a starburst.
I see.
Sure.
Nice.
As around the head.
Right. It's like
I love that.
I was just watching that talk by David Altmage, and he talked about how. They're generators. Like, he creates objects that are like generators. Crystals that generate energy.
A friend of mine that I went to school with talked about it as beams. Beams of light. In my work and stuff.
Well, I mean, again, if you get into the subtle energy and the esoteric stuff, thoughts are things. And they are beams, and they are projected out, right?
And even with some of the, like, I look into the physics a lot and stuff like that, and being an object maker as a sculptor, it's sort of a strange paradox, because objects are really more potentialities than actual, like, if you break down material at the like physics level.
Right.
There's like no real matter there.
They tend to. It's like they tend to exist in this
space.
Yeah.
Within an atom.
Exactly.
And we are more
and I find that
anything
stuff
else.
just so fascinating.
And it's
absolutely.
It's a weird paradox.
So interesting. Yeah.
But that's part of, I think, the strangeness
and much
that we're all trying to understand.
Much of my realizations are just that we are such spiritual people.
Yeah.
Like, as a species,
Yes.
I think
Yes.
we should really be practicing our spirituality.
Is the gold that you use in your work, and I know in the next room we have another piece that uses a lot of gold, metallic gold. Is that representation of energy or suggesting energy in light?
I would agree. Yeah.
Or is there an alchemical?
Or
element to it?
Well,
I think it's more like iconic in like
Like an
spiritual kind of paintings.
well, it's kind of a pinnacle of material, right?
Yeah, too, as well. Yeah.
Which then like when
like gold itself is rare and it's sought after and it's makes it like special and
and it's always been used in spiritual art to represent the highest level of attainment. Noticing that on the ladder here,
the first rung
is gold, and then a bit at the top. Right, and
it's the hardest step, I guess. In the, the first step is hardest.
That's right.
Yeah.
This piece was done from a photo that I saw on Instagram, and I really enjoyed it. It was just so simple and so. I think I don't mean to. Ruin it for other people what they see and stuff like that, but I think those were kind of like saws that would be used in ice lakes to be
there's saw blades.
The saw blades to take out the ice out of a lake and then bring it to a fridge at a farm or something.
Okay,
like that. 30s, 40s kind of thing.
The ice when you had ice.
Those guys that would go to the
ice box. You had the ice box.
Boxes,
Oh, cool.
And the picture was in an old barn. So, but I liked it so much. I thought they're like a little bit ambiguous. It's kind of the ambiguity there is there, and you don't quite know what they are, but it's still like kind of looks functional and and
there's a feeling of the potentiality of danger.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
And
yet it's the way it's positioned beside the ladder is suggesting ascension or development.
I did title it that, ascension.
Okay, cool.
Or ascending or ascension.
And they just work so they just find that perfect balance between functionality and abstraction. Right, cerebral and physical.
And it also relates to for me to Brancusi's endless column. That idea of the endless, right?
Oh, that's right.
Right.
Yeah, I never thought of that, but that's nice. I like that association. Yeah.
Let's talk about the cage.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, I see the cage and the shelter figure here. I mean, there seems to be some kind of a communication between these two structurally.
Yeah.
They feel connected for sure.
They were made at different times and stuff like that, but. That came from a drawing, and I sort of see it somewhat as like, and it's at head height. I left it at head height where you could interact with, you could see almost your head in it, like as though it was part of a medieval cage that would be over top of somebody's head.
It does feel
in like an insane asylum or something like that. Or torture chamber. Yeah, exactly.
So,
well, and it's interesting because it's almost like the inverse of that.
It is. That's
right,
true,
which is generating ideas and bursting out where this is containing.
Yet there's a breach, and I wonder if that is, a sign of hope. That whenever this cage-like structure is, there is a breach and there's a way out.
A broken circle.
But it's very striking, and I hadn't even thought of it until you mentioned that you put it at the height of the head. To emphasize
you may have an interaction.
Again, it's kind of frightening. kind of frightening to consider it that way.
Yeah.
And then the shadow is lovely.
This is a protective encasing.
It's a bit more warming, yeah.
And of course all the gold makes it feel protective.
Yeah.
This has some gold in it, but it's a little bit more menacing.
It is a bit more menacing, yeah.
So I had seen online that there was something mentioning about like losing marbles.
These are just marbles here that I added to the piece lately.
But was there some kind of reference on your website? And then I was thinking, well, maybe you're making a joke.
Of it.
I know you have.
Yeah,
I was wondering if you were making a joke about
lost marbles.
The marbles were found, or
no? I was intentional about the lost marbles thing. Yeah.
Yeah, you were. Yeah. It was a tongue-in-cheek kind of.
Losing your
losing your marbles. Yeah, so that's the fun again. That a little bit of whimsy.
Oh, that way. Yes, that's true. Yeah, that is whimsical. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Your first encounter is this. I don't know what you would even call it. Like a mountain of.
Yeah, it does almost have like a mountain-like quality to it, for sure. And I have like the blue and the green for sky and earth kind of symbolism, and
I only noticed today that the top one is gold.
Yeah, the top one.
So the pinnacle,
exactly.
I've spent years studying the imagery of alchemy, and of course, these kind of mounds with representing ascension and the alchemistic principle, and then of course gold being the highest point is awesome. And then of course we go inside or behind, and
it also works as a shelter.
You have this golden being, this homunculus
so that,
within.
Figure was part of a sculpture that I had done in school, and I just had ended up keeping it with me for so many years, and I was like, I want to reincorporate this in a piece, and I built this, and then it just sort of ended up fitting perfectly underneath it, and I was like, yes. It's just so wonderful sometimes, serendipity, the way things happen with this.
That struck me as a eureka moment. That's one of those things, it just strikes me as that without that element, you've got sort of, there's something incomplete about this. With that element in it, now you have a dialogue. Now you have this contrast going on.
The mystery and
this mystery, and of course it's also a human element.
Yes,
right? There's a story now. There's a figure. There's a person, a personality, a persona, all of that, and but it strikes me again, as you said, like, oh, that fits there so perfectly. I can't imagine that now, having seen this several times. I can't imagine that being elsewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
It just fits there so well.
Yeah, it worked out well for me. In the drawings, this was a piece just on its own.
Right.
So it's a good observation that you made that it came together well that way, because like it was just serendipity in the way that life unfolds sometimes in the studio.
Isn't it?
And stuff like that. The way you just
it's a chance discovery, and yet it's a perfect placement, right? And the ordinary viewer is going to come in. Charlie will probably film the room at some point. They might notice the fellow behind us.
But then it's a little surprise.
But it's a bit of a surprise, and you have to kind of look back.
For sure. Well, and that
you conceive the structure. Were you working in a sketchbook at the time?
It was a sketchbook.
An evolution before you arrived at this.
It was a sketchbook, and I basically, the process would be I got a jigsaw and sort of jigsawed the shape out, and then put it together, and I didn't know how high it was going to end up being for how thick it was. So I established the width. I wanted to be 8 feet, which was the length of the sheet. And then I just used as much material as I could to bring it back further and further. But I had no idea how high it was going to be. Like I said, like we had just discussed, like it ended up being perfect for the piece, the figure that went underneath it.
So you carved all of this with a jigsaw? All of these?
And this is installation styrofoam?
This is kernel like a kernel styrofoam.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right. I see it now.
Thick,
Yeah.
They look almost machine made, and that's not to detract from your. It's actually to emphasize your skill, because they're absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, they have to be uniform to work, right?
Uniform.
I really enjoy Eva Hess's work. I find it's almost like the foundation of my vocabulary.
Really?
Although I do a lot more color than she did. Well, that's not true. In her early paintings, there's tons of color.
Yes.
But then she moved into more minimal I call it organic minimalism.
She
I don't
said
know why.
Who's that?
She
Sorry, can you say again who you're
something
talking about? I didn't hear.
Eva Hess.
Eva Hess.
Eva Hess, yeah.
And I thought she said something like industrial organic or
Okay,
organic,
cool, yeah.
because she's using industrial materials, but creating these organic,
just
manner.
like using the hand, having the hand be part of it and being able to see that element to it, even though it is minimal in some ways.
She's one of the most personal tragedies that I've ever come across. I had no idea when I first found her stuff. That she had such a short life, such a wonderful life, and so much productivity in such a short time. And
she was the real
and she's
deal.
definitely one of these ones that you go, if she had lived a full life, can you imagine what she would have created? So I am imagining now what she could have created. I think,
that's flattering, but
I can see how it informs your.
It does
aesthetic,
definitely,
and it's wonderful.
My work.
But I also can't imagine the physical exertion that goes into cranking out all of these shapes repetitively.
It's the focus.
Yeah. How long would that take? How long would it take?
That took probably
just to get the shapes in place.
That took probably. It took me all winter, and then I had to fiberglass the back of it together. It's in 3 different portions. I had to fiberglass the back of it together so it wouldn't split.
See the back.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So I was looking, before coming today, I was looking at your website, and a lot of your pieces, I mean, they're all sort of similar in that they combine sometimes found objects and sculpted objects, playful colors. And I'm wondering what role whimsy or humor plays in making the pieces.
I would say whimsical through color.
Okay, yeah.
Whimsical through color, or ideas of non-function. Not so much humor, because I have went through school with a fellow sculptor that did use specifically humor.
Sure.
And I could weed out that I wasn't doing that.
Like the Red Grooms kind of like, you know.
Like there were 2. There was a ceramics guy and another guy. He did like, so there were 2 guys using humor.
Would play be a more accurate term? Play,
okay,
But through the aspect of color, because of its ability to look like maybe a toy or something that might function but doesn't function. Those types of things.
And colors that don't, maybe you wouldn't normally put together.
Exactly. Stuff like
that balance between functionality and abstraction that you strike so well.
My palette comes from a photo shoot. I forget it's a shame because I'm being recorded. I could have given a shout out to this photo shoot, but I've had it on my wall for 20 years, but my palette is just specifically this photo shoot.
Wow, eh?
I use the same colors like over and over and over again.
Well, I'll get you to send that to me.
I will,
and then we'll spice it in.
That is wonderful, because I do find that color is one of the most difficult things for me to wrestle with in terms of all the decisions you have to make. And so that makes it simpler. To find the colors that you want to use, and yet, of course, they're gorgeous.
Thank you, appreciate that. And I also find that, like, from the 80s, I grew up with a mom that was quite a fashionista, and the 80s was just full of color. Like Miami Vice, like pinks and all kinds of like polos and all that kind of stuff. So color has just always been really important to me to bring into the work.
Well, and it gets away from some of the especially modernist sculptors who like color wasn't really, it was either like monochrome or like, you know, the color of rusted iron.
Yeah, for sure. Like Boyce is a good example of a sculptor that doesn't use a lot of color, but his ideas within the healing arts and those types of things are things that I really like. Art of Provera is an element of like that type of work. I love Italian art, sculpture. There's a couple of Italian sculptors right now that I really enjoy their work, but they don't use any color.
Yeah, exactly.
They don't use any color.
Or whatever's from nature, and I guess Boyce was really interested. Of course, felt the fat. The kind of North European mythology, paganism.
And there's like another artist, Mark Manders, that I really enjoyed during the early 2000s when I was going to school and stuff. I love his work still, but he was really influential then, and he wasn't using a lot of color. So artists like Jessica Stockholder was a big deal for me.
Love her.
She was incredible. She just really laid a nice, gorgeous foundation of what was possible with sculpture and
especially found objects,
even though she calls
materials.
herself more of a painter, she was doing installations that were like I think she did one at the Mattress Factory that was just incredible. Like it was stuff that it's stuff that I hadn't seen done before.
Yeah, the way she put found objects together that were very colorful. There was a big installation here at Harbourfront at one point.
Oh, was there?
That was an amazing show. One of my favorites.
No, she was a big influence on, still is, but I don't remember
sure.
Much. But when I was in school, So,
what is the name of this piece?
Echo Incidents.
Echo Incidents?
Coincidence, but
like echo
coincidence, but again,
an
echo of the
coincidence.
So it was a term
because of the coinciding
of the patterning of this.
I see.
And it was sort of a vague.
I see how the echo.
Is
played out physically. That's beautiful.
But the term came from my psychosis when I would have a incident where, like if someone was talking about tinted windows, it would like repeat, and then I thought that had something to do with me, and so it was like these echoing of coincidences. So it basically turned serendipity and coincidences just to the darkest realm.
I was going to say that sounds very frightening.
It is terrifying because it's really interesting because it's like it literally is the opposite of Buddhism in how they talk about like taking the self out of the equation, and you sort of realize why it's so important to do that, because basically otherwise you're suffering from a type of like well, I guess it's a psychosis, it's schizophrenia, but it's just like everything you're taking, you're obsessive about yourself, and you're just thinking about yourself, and it's so narrow-minded.
Sure, like so in Buddhism, all those voices one would hear in their head, you just listen and let them go. For example. But you also have to, so this is an area that has fascinated me for 40 years, so and I had a discussion with someone recently that you actually have to have a strong sense of self to transcend the self.
Yes.
Otherwise, then it is a form of psychosis. Because the self is trying to make sense, and it isn't strong. It isn't cohesive, or it's fragmented. But then there are a lot of people who've studied various forms of Buddhism who then have massive breakdowns because they've lost any sense of self.
What would you say the sense of self is of the figure?
Well, this one,
sense of self, he, she, it.
I mean, the piece when I did that originally was with another two figures, and it was like this was the sort of inner child.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was like a smaller figure to a figure that was actually life size.
Yeah.
So there were two figures side by side, and that was sort of the inner child. So I thought that was also very appropriate that the inner child kind of is being sheltered. And,
so on the one hand, it's sheltered, or I have seen it originally as like that's like a wave of all the noise in the world, or all the things, but it is protected.
Yeah.
So it's brilliant that way. right? All the stuff that hovers, you know, over us.
Yes, for sure. Yeah.
So, where do you see yourself going next? Do you have another project?
I have a show in Peterborough in September at a gallery, and I'm hoping to make some new pieces for that.
Okay.
And I would love to go to. I'd love to get like a dealer in LA.
Yeah, sure.
I think that my work would look good in New York or LA or something like. Yeah.
Oh,
I've always been fond of artists out of LA, and I just have this soft spot for.
Yeah.
It's real.
The color, the pop, the energy.
Yeah.
Must be fantastic.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Mike, it's been great hanging out with you and chatting and learning more about your work.
Thank you. Much appreciated.
Yeah. And let's keep in touch.
Yes, for sure. Yeah. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.